Tech Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Good evening, y'all. How you doing? Excellent. What is your name? Ross. Ross. Everybody say, what's up, Ross?
He's got a name tag on. What are you doing?
Usually.
You're testing to make sure.
I didn't want this to come out tonight. As an author, it's very embarrassing, but I can't read.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for outing me, though, Brian.
You're very welcome.
We are at a tech cocktail event. This is all of our first times in downtown Vegas. I've been to Vegas too many times before, I think, but not this beautiful part. There are no cocktails at this event.
Soberest cocktail event I've ever been to.
I don't know if that's just like an ironic organization. So we just brought some rum whiskey combo up here, just in case. It's called Rumski.
Yes, if you're looking for confirmation, it is.
Yeah. So yeah, good evening, y'all. We are gonna to share some lessons that we have learned from the worlds that we come from. We are all heavily involved in humor and have worked in it professionally. We've sold ads against it. We performed on stage. We've done improv. And so there are a lot of things coming from that world that now that we have left the Onion and started our own organization, our own company, we think scale and apply to that region as well. That's our beautiful logo right there. The company's called Cultivated Wit. Our motto is "We Make Fun." And that's pictures. You have to figure out which one of those represents each of us up here. Just take your time.
Memory game. Yeah.
Take your time. So what we wanted to review is, there are a lot of similarities in kind of performing comedy and doing the business of comedy that we think work, especially for startups in general and tech startups in particular. And so we have our own set of rules that we wanted to kind of
I think all these are things that have been really helpful to us.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily any of us come up from this background where, intense business school training or like a sort of startup background. We came from comedy, came from the Onion most specifically, all three of us together. And these have served us tremendously well, and so we wanted to share them as we were told to do earlier. Just share all of your important knowledge with everybody else.
We know about 5 things, so
this is all five.
really
This is all
nice and tight.
This is decades of expertise in non-numerical format. So the first is about this theme of sort of mixing different types of people for the purpose of play, and it's something we found. It's a way of thinking about diversity in some non-obvious ways, and it's a way of thinking about purpose with a little more openness attached to it. The world of improv is a great place to borrow from in this region. I spent an intensive study at the Improv Olympic in Chicago in their sort of accelerated summer program where you do 5 weeks of improv that represents sort of 5 semesters of study. It's literally 9 to 5 every day. And the basic principle of improv is that you're agreeing with the people you're playing with. You don't know the show you're going to be producing together. You're not writing it in advance. You're kind of saying yes to their idea and then building something on top of it. And you don't care too much about the longevity. In fact, longevity is the antithesis of much of improv. That show was one night only, and then the next night you're doing something different. So when we actually work with companies and some of the types of business we do, we start with playful improv exercises. And if there's one piece of life advice that all of you should follow, it's take an improv class. Even if you're not having any aspirations toward performance, it kind of opens you up as a person and makes you better because it reminds you that play has some real practical advantages without ruining play in the process. That's it.
I agree.
That's all we learned.
That was
Thank
5
you so
things
much.
in one.
Gonna open this.
Thank you,
Ross.
you guys are awesome.
Thank you, Ross. The other thing, this company is premised on the idea that humor is really powerful, that we use it to communicate complex ideas, that technology helps amplify and connect us all. When we bring those things together, we can really change the world. So we make media, we work with clients to create these digital campaigns, and we believe that products should be developed with more humanity and heart in them, and we're trying to blur that line between content and technology, also between my microphone and my left arm. And we're succeeding in both of those important missions. So one of the major projects that we've undertaken that was Craig's initial idea is called Comedy Hack Day, and we'll let him talk directly about that.
Sure, yeah. So at The Onion, I was a graphics editor, and I did all those like Joe Biden Photoshops you guys might have seen.
You mean the photojournalism? Capturing Joe
photojournalism,
Biden?
yeah.
He's a photographer.
I'm an amazing photographer.
Yes.
I really just get in there. You don't even see me. So I was hanging out at The Onion, made a bunch of friends in comedy, And I'll going to a lot of like tech stuff on the weekends. You know, I'm a programmer as well. And I realized like these two groups of people have a lot in common. Like, first of all, they're all super awkward. Second of all, like they really like building things with each other. You know, like in comedy, like you're riffing off one another, and in programming, you're just kind of like forking and adding to open source code and that kind of thing. So last year, it was I guess like August or something, we initiated this thing called Comedy Hack Day, where we take comedians and developers and bring them together for a weekend to just build like funny, weird stuff. It's pretty awesome. We've done 3 so far, New York, San Francisco, and Boston, or Cambridge. Cambridge, if you want to call it that.
Why are you putting Cambridge in quotation marks?
Whatever, man.
It's a real city.
Says the Harvard grad.
It's got a zip code and
Harvard.
It's
everything.
Boston. It's all Boston.
There's a place. Yeah. So these are 2 of the things that came out of. I guess these were both this year, right?
They're both out of San Francisco. These 2 in particular.
Oh yeah, both out of San Francisco at Twitter, which was awesome. So citation needed. It's based on the idea that you're at a bar with your friend, you're kind of bullshitting. You know, everybody's a scientist about everything, so you just make up some dumb fact, and then you realize, like, oh, I just made that up. So your friend calls you out, and you're like, oh man, I need to find a source for this. So you go into citation needed, and you type in the Wikipedia page for the thing you were talking about. You type in your fact, and it injects it into the page. So you just show it to your friends.
Is that here? See?
Yeah.
Yep. And Magic Story Maker was also presented at that spot, and we wanted to present this because this is actually one of the only thing that we have that is actually available for download in the iTunes store right now. This came out of a Comedy Hack Day, but it was basically built on the mindset that if you have children, they are difficult on a lot of different levels, but one of the biggest pain points of that is reading to them, because it's read me this book, and then the next night it's read me this book, and the next night it's read me this book, and it's always the same book.
Yep.
And you're never getting to read, daddy's reading, or mommy's reading, or like the news, or understanding what's going on in the world. So
Outside of the mind of this person.
poor child who exists in the same world, every night, over and over again.
And over again.
And so what Magic Story Maker does is it is an iPad app that syncs in with the stories that you peg from USA Today or other different news outlets that you may want to read yourself. And it gives them a skin of Jungle Jimmy or Susie Moonboots or
Marty Moonboots.
Marty
Yeah.
Moonboots, excuse
Yeah.
me. And so they get all the little monkeys and the little, forest dwelling pictures, since they can't read. They're dumb little kids.
Yeah.
And you can read about, the tech mergers or,
Sports. Grown-up stuff.
Yeah,
Important
grown-up
things,
that
not
kind of stuff.
the monkey.
Yeah. So, but again, I think that what both of those, are examples of is a lot of times these were coming from maybe a comic's mind. Someone who, in both of these ideas, may have come about as a stand-up artist, maybe getting up on a stage and got, imagine if there was an app that existed that did X, Y, Z. But here in this environment where developers are sort of right there and sort of listening to it, saying, I know how to make that. Like that's possible. And it's been so awesome to see, and I think it's a good takeaway of like people being open to each other and being willing to play and engage with one another that way. These things that can come about that wouldn't have happened to that full extent exclusively alone in the other community.
I believe the term you're looking for is synergy.
No, that wasn't the term I was looking for.
Six
but
Sigma is that. Yeah, it's a term.
And it is also, to return to that improv theme, I mean, that combination, like someone offers up the idea, the developer says yes, and I can do it this way. The designer comes in and says yes, and I can make it look beautiful. And so it is, you're actually watching in a physical space this come together, different types of minds and ideas. So as a principal in building your own organizations, think about the different types of mindsets that you can bring to the table to counter, but also to add to the ideas from one group to another.
Great idea.
Yeah. There is a very popular meme out there about failure and the value of it, and most of that's wrong. But there is truth to a subset of it, and it's not just about sort of accepting failure. It's about embracing failure as part of the creative process and understanding that to get to the best ideas, sometimes you literally have to work through some bad ones and get them out of your system. One place that you can see this happening a lot is in stand-up comedy. That's my sort of original comedy background, is in some satirical writing, and now 12 years in stand-up. And when you're in stand-up, if you only go to one stand-up show in your life, you don't really see what that art is, because it is an iterative art. You're going on stage every night, telling the same jokes over and over, tweaking little details about them, bombing half the time, maybe a third of the time, until you find the voice for the thing that you're really trying to create. If there's no such thing as a perfect stand-up comedian that hits it all the time. If not, they're not taking any risks. We're not saying anything worth listening to. So that part of that process has failure embedded into it. And another area that has that process embedded is where we all share some background is from our work at The Onion. And Brian Rand was a deputy managing editor there, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means, what failure in the process of The Onion actually means.
Yeah, and so just to step back a little bit and give you a little insight into The Onion, this is what you're looking at here is actually after Steve Jobs died. What The Onion's
we
process,
thought, let's make some jokes.
Yeah, no. The Onion's process is always about producing a lot of headlines, a lot of ideas, and it's really coming from this place of like, we're not gonna just sit in a room and come up with one headline that's gonna nail it. So everybody writes a lot of headlines, and this is a cutout of a list that was probably 4 times as long. It was limited by the screen capture space that we had available to us.
Somebody could work on that technology. Maybe we could disrupt screen capture.
Yeah.
Brian's also not very good at screen capture.
No, I'm terrible. And so the point being is that we intentionally make a ton of garbage, a ton of stuff that we're going to throw away and never use. And the point is that then through the process, whether this is on a week-to-week basis with the normal Onion production, or in this case for breaking news, we sort of understand that you need to produce a lot of stuff and not be so precious about what you make, and that 90, 95, 99% of what you make might just get thrown away, because what you're really looking for is that one really strong idea. And so what we started to do, in certain instances, there was more than just one, but in this case, so this was the headline that we sort of pushed out first. And that was sort of just to react to it sort of in the moment. Like that was sort of within several hours. And then the next headline is where we sort of the next morning what we came out with. And I think they both were doing different things. Like one was clearly targeting the sort of panic of like, well, what's going to happen now? And the other was really sort of respecting and sort of trying to make that big statement on this man and what he had contributed.
Absolutely.
But I think the big takeaway and what I always carry with me from The Onion is that process of just like make a lot. Don't be precious about it, and understand that the process of getting to that good idea, the process of succeeding ultimately, or doing something brilliant or smart or insightful, is doing a lot of stuff that are not those things.
Yeah, and
for a long time.
For a long
like
time.
10 years.
Yeah. Absolutely, and thinking about, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be brilliant. The word innovation and the word creativity are thrown out there like you can just grab them and then own them forever. And they're like emergent properties of other processes, right? So you've got to put yourself in a space where you can arrive at them along the way. They're part of a journey and not just some place you can teleport to. So understanding that, and I'm going to throw in 5 other metaphors.
Until we can teleport.
Until we announce our
local
teleportation
motors.
device.
Yeah,
Can you do
and
that?
then you'll be able to teleport right there, and that's going to be
Street
awesome.
legal teleportation.
That's gonna
You
be
just got to
great.
go to Phoenix
You
to
just
get
have
it.
to go there for a couple days,
Yeah,
and then it's like this homebrew.
So for now, you have to do a lot of work.
So moving right along, this is a segue off of the topic of our former employer and into the topic of what we're doing now. One of the mistakes that people make, and it's not really a mistake, it's just a lack of understanding about how a place like The Onion works. There's no bylines there. There's no particular public individual credit for the creative process because it's a collective process. What binds The Onion together across all this time and all this space, and organizations like it, I think you could say Pixar is an organization like that as well, is that there's a character that you are writing for. And if you rethink about the things you've seen out of a place like The Onion over the past several decades, there's a consistent character and a consistent voice that can get applied to technology news, that can get applied to financial news, that can get applied to sports, because this is an overbearing, domineering, all-knowing, condescending media voice and satire of the media. You take that and you apply it to everything. The voice of the store you run, the voice of the Twitter feed you operate. But you got to kind of know yourself first, nail that, know that voice, and then apply it outbound.
Yeah, in the Onion's case, that voice came from T. Herman Zwiebel, who is the publisher. And in the Onion's history, he served from 1896 to 2001, was his reign as publisher. But there's this long story that I'll spare you all from kind of the half-hour version of it. But he was a tuber farmer who sold his ox cart for a printing press.
Pretty classic story. So you can
all right, guys, all right. Everyone get comfortable because I'm going to
it's
dive
an
in here.
archetype, so.
No, but I think as Baratunde said, like this character and this guy, and then the sort of history that was built up from around him. The Onion had this benefit of being able to craft that story, but so much. For me, or for any of us who came in not at day one at this company, if you think about it that way, by just learning the story, you understand your role in this place. You understand, like, oh, like, this is who talks. I don't. And, like, you know, this is the voice when we do anything new. If we try and, like, sort of, what are we going to do in this new platform? How are we going to, what does Onion do on Foursquare? Well, what would T. Herman Zwiebel do? Like, what does the Zwiebel family do? And I think this does apply outside of the sort of made-up fantasy world, which is what is, as Baratunde said, your voice. Like, what is your story? And then as you sort of approach these sort of new challenges, you can sort of, rather than sort of make it up every time as you go, you sort of, well, what is our character? How would our character approach this problem?
And then most questions downstream from that are easier to answer. Not everything's a crisis or a micro decision. It's just applying the motivation of that character to that scenario. And we're all writers in that sense because we all live lives and we do it with ourselves every day. When we thought about what that meant for Cultivated Wit, I mean, we're born very much of a similar spirit in that we're anchored in humor. And this term occurred for the name of the company to me actually based on indirectly advice from the CEO of The Onion, who sent me to an article that led me to studying Horace that led to this really amazing quote, which says, "A cultivated wit, that which badgers less, can persuade all the more. You know, artful ridicule can do more to address contentious issues than can severity alone." And there's a lot of weight in those words, but cultivated wit just sort of sang out, and it gave us some bearings by which to kind of operate and then apply to all the types of work we want to do, whether it's developing a tech product, which Craig is leading, whether it's working as an agency in a creative independent sort of original programming shop, which Brian leads, or whether it's scruffing up microphones and revealing my illiteracy, which is what I do. There is something in all of that kind of comes back to this, and when you look at our work outside of it, you even look at the emails that we send out. You know, we all went to Cannes this summer, courtesy of AOL. We had a web series with them, and our subject line of this message is a little small, but it says, "Hey Europe, we're about to be in you." And that's a very nice way to say we're coming to Europe.
Random side note, I'll let that one sink in. No pun intended.
No, it's a geographic reference.
Yeah, it's classic. It's like some French thing I don't understand. We like pitch headlines in the same way for like our email subject lines. Like the process goes through everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we try and stem, you can click through, like we approach even our emails and every little tiny element, the process of signing up through our emails is coming through this sort of humor-infused process. And I think it makes it easy for us to approach these things, big and small decisions, when we have a deep understanding of sort of what our voice is and what our sort of story is. It makes it sort of more natural to sort of, you're not reinventing like a news story every time you're trying, well, how do we do our emails? Let's do our emails like this. Let's have our Twitter feed be like this. Our Facebook presence.
Make a Twitter feed with little tiny speakers.
But no, it's true.
Anyway.
Like we don't.
That'd be amazing, right? Who doesn't want
Now
little
we're
tiny
off the rails.
speakers scrolling
He does this all the time.
down their screen? Make a GIF. Let's do this.
I mean, yeah, but to your point, like we don't start with like a blank canvas every time because like that's when you get,
Seize up a
you're
little
terrified.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other major story that we want to kind of share with you in terms of things we've learned through all these comedic activities is that you want to create interaction and not just consumption. You want to give your community, and really try to think of them as a community, not just readers or viewers or customers.
Or mindless drones.
Mindless drones.
To be stepped upon and exploed
and
for
crushed
all the
with
natural resources.
Squeezing
that
the blood
they
from their stone that is their soul.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
They're not that.
So
It's not that profitable either. So.
because you end up murdering your customer base. It's bad.
Your drones.
Yeah. So you want to build some level of play back and forth with them. And it doesn't have to mean that you outsource everything you hold dear to them. You got to have, we heard Michael talk about it very clearly, like be open to advice, but also be an expert. This is very consistent with that notion. I wrote this book called How to Be Black, which had an amazing and effective sort of science-based tagline, which was, if you don't buy this book, you're a racist. And that was based on study. It was based on science. It's not my opinion. We talked to a lot of doctors out there. Not Michael, he failed at that, but other people who pursued medicine. And so what happened with the book, first of all, people took it, and the image of the cover was designed in such a way that you would want to see it. You would be curious. You would walk up to somebody and approach them. People are posing with it and staging little scenes. If you search the hashtag on Instagram, it's full of ridiculous versions of stuff just like this, with multiple species of being sort of being embraced inside the book. But the other thing I had to think about as someone who was essentially born creatively on the internet, born through a satirical email newsletter in the 90s, I wanted to be able to bring some of my internetness into this book writing process, which was kind of the opposite of what I had been training to do, like murder a tree, fill it with stuff, ship it around the world. I was like a blogger and a social media guy and someone on stage. So I wrote the book partially in public. I shared my screen. I used this screen sharing software designed for tech support and sales demos, and I let people in on the process. I didn't let them write the book for me, because I'm still the author, and the software comes with that feature, which lets you request control over the computer. And people are like, I know how to be black, let me tell you. It's like, no, that's not what we're doing here. But I set up some guidelines for people, which said, look, I'm going to be writing, you can feel free to talk to each other. And they did that. They interrogated each other. How did you find out about this writer? Oh, I heard him on this podcast, et cetera, et cetera. They started exchanging bits of information about themselves. And before you know it, you have this virtual meetup, which wasn't why I did it. I did it for ego and weirdness, right? But people found relationships on their own because the opportunity was there. You give people a space, they'll fill it. So think about that.
I did it for ego, and weirdness is like your epithet. Like, it's beyond your zone. Yeah,
it's rather he
that's
did
your
it for
life.
ego.
Yeah,
We did
yeah,
it for
it's
ego
your
and
like
weirdness.
life.
It's
Yep,
good.
that's why.
And so some of the things people were saying in that chat room were pretty interesting. Oh, I got the Michael effect.
Yep.
One person said something in a font that I can't read, but you can.
Do you want me to read it? Yeah, there you go. Do that.
Oh, how
Karaoke.
self-obsessed does one have to be to set up something like this? The answers vary. I'm for transparency, that's fine. Other people have more unique questions. Said, I'm surprised to see Baratunde use semicolons, which is weird, because I didn't think of myself as an anti-semicolon type of person. And I had to question myself. And then the last thing that I would share from the transcripts, I wasn't paying attention to this, but after the fact, I saw this, and I thought, okay, that's the best thing maybe ever written on the internet, probably. And I'm an author, and I could say that. Like, I could put my own ego aside and give credit to user 456.
You should have let them take control of the screen.
For this, yeah.
Yeah,
for
this
this,
should have been in the book.
that's the title of my next book. So yeah, this is just great questions. The half regular black, obviously, is the focal point of our curiosity. It just raises other questions, like half, what is it? Is it Black Zero? Is that a flavor out there? Is there Diet Black? I just don't understand the concept of regular black. And then when we designed our own website, we worked with a great team of animators and front-end designers out in San Francisco. We wanted to build that same spirit into how we interacted, even on something as boring as a corporate website, and have some level of fun and interaction with what goes on there.
And so, as we were talking about a little before with how we approach our email, like we wanted this fun, we wanted this sort of craziness to sort of be present. And so we were talking about literally the different sections of our site, and we sort of knew we needed our logo and like what we're about, and we wanted to sort of showcase our work. We needed to describe who we are, and we got to this section 4. And we knew we wanted something weird, and we didn't know what to call it, and we didn't know what it should be. But this here is kind of what we landed at, and this is appropriately enough called section 4, and this is the process. I don't know what you wrote.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh,
You're a member of
awesome.
Section 4.
Everyone can
He's a
take it
member.
right now by with their eyes and their minds.
We appreciate your patience. It takes a lot to go through these applications.
Yeah.
We should have added music, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have learned to type faster in 4th grade.
Pay special attention.
Yeah. Clearly have a lot of important stuff on our website.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. Yeah. So join Section 4.
Yeah,
So-
That's all we're allowed to say.
if you're admitted. And go
The
ahead.
what we've sort of discovered is the best part about this whole thing, aside from it's just long and we love that it exists, is that we have had as much engagement with this section and as many email addresses come in as the sign up for the newsletter. Like as many people
Well,
are going all the way
In
through.
like half the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is, and I think like the reason we want to kind of put it out here is just like, and it speaks to that if you put a button or something. I don't know why I said that. Like
That was a
button.
strange.
Listen,
What just
I
happened?
have
You
my
were-
family. That word is. I have a long history with that word.
Family
It
of button
means
ears.
a different thing if you say it the way that most people say it in my family, and so if you
He's from the Midwest.
a-
It's confusing.
Sorry, one more time.
button
Nice. Well done.
on the site, that is just that. It's just sort of a button. But
Yeah.
if you give someone a game, they will play it.
Yeah.
If you and I think the next thing we're going to go to is an example of that we arrived at earlier this year with a sort of a little spin-off project that we wanted to start up. You want to set it
Yeah,
up?
so you guys remember when we're living like the quote-unquote greatest democracy in the world, and we have these three branches of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. And one of those branches just decided not to do its job, right? Congress just shut down. And that created, it sort of added to a negative vibe about Congress. It had some pretty low approval ratings. We thought we put words to that approval rating. And so we expressed this kind of sentiment, which I think 91% of people living in this country agreed with. What we did not expect is that that sentiment would be available through the domain registration system. And so we put something there. We grabbed it, we planted a flag, and we built this interaction. We built this beautiful tool which allowed us to, first of all, kind of express in beautifully profane language, but also very cited and fact-based language, what was going on with this shutdown. It also gave us an opportunity to build a level of engagement beyond getting people upset.
I think on a big picture, what we started out with and what we sort of, what became the challenge as I saw it was, can you take all this negativity? And that's mostly what you get, especially with this Congress situation, was just people being angry and not necessarily, and can you spin it into something positive? And can you put out a filter? And as we're getting out of Section 4, can you sort of make a game or give something to be done that can educate people and can sort of channel all that negativity, because it is energy, and energy is like tough to get. And can you turn it into something useful, like in something maybe positive?
Yeah.
And so, we got to work, and we knew that humor is a way, and by giving them that back on the other side, so there's fucking more button that's there. People are like, there's fucking, yeah, damn right, there's fucking more, and they keep hitting it, and they're reinforced with more fuck yous and more, and like secretly, every one of these, like we made sure to do a lot of research. These are all connected to like smart, insightful articles about what is happening and the maybe unintended consequences.
They're learning.
Yeah, they're
Tricking
learning.
them.
They're learning. We're teaching them via the word fuck to learn. Whoop.
What is that?
The government Fuck.
Oh no.
What?
Did someone tweet this out?
Oh my God.
NSA is in our
Why are there
system.
birds on the
Jesus
screen?
Christ.
What does that even mean?
It's just like
We gotta
comes
go.
up-
We gotta go right
It's
now.
the Carlisle group, guys.
The
It's the
slide-
Carlisle group. Does not like where we're going.
It says "fuck you, Cultivated." But you know, and so through this layer, which is just sort of you know, was just catharsis
Yeah.
and with a little bit of education, and the next layer, as Baratunde showed, which is getting people to sort of understand I'm connected to my representative. Like there's a way that I can channel this and make my voice heard.
And people in this case, they actually discovered, you know, a lot of people discovered who their representatives even were based on wanting to yell "fuck you" at that person. Right? That's beautiful, right? That's sort of the unintended consequence.
And
it's
then,
great.
you know, at the very bottom of the site, we had this sort of message of like, you have that sort of all out of your system now. You know, here's if you made it this far down, you're still enraged or you still
You're
want
like
to
panting at this point.
Yeah, here's some places you can go, and you know, it was so successful. And again, like looping it back around to this overall point is to say you may have something that seems unfun or boring, or you know, that seems like a challenge to get people to think about or to, you know, to make their way through. But you can sort of think about a way to sort of put a different filter on it, a different layer on it. Give them a sort of a game to play more than maybe just a button to push. A button to push.
Good. Yeah.
And then the purpose of all of that, again, isn't to say you got to go be funny all the time. You have to drive these comedic interactions. It's to try to derive like what's just underneath of that. And in this case, that interaction. You even think about some of the great stand-up shows you may have been to yourself. You know, the comic that engages, you just feel more a part of that show. And you are. And I mean, even stand-up, even without direct verbal engagement, is a conversation. Like without laughs, it's very awkward or bad, or both in this case. So we wanted to kind of put a label on that, maybe even a button on it.
Sorry, I don't understand that word.
It's contagious, apparently. I'm glad I'm on this side of the room. So yeah, so that's just some of what we are up to. You know, again, we're trying to develop. I feel some kindred spiritness with Michael and his talk earlier, talking about we're a services company, we're a product company. Like we are in a very similar, you know, crossroads because we work with clients and kind of build things out and do things like "fuck you, Congress," but you know, for money. In this case, the client was the American people and it was pro bono. But in other times, it might be a real, you know, commercial or cause-based entity, and we want to, you know, build scalable tech tools that have this comedic and tech overlap. So think about those things that we talked about, you know, mixing different types of people for the purpose of fun. Think about the idea of throwing away, you know, the things you care about, embracing failure as a part of the process, and being on a journey towards something good, not trying to shortcut to good as a destination. Think about building, you know, interaction and not just consumption, and bringing people into the process.
Finding your voice.
And think about what your voice is. Know that, nail that, and then it makes everything downstream from that so much easier.
Thank you. I don't know how you end this.
They take a microphone.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's how it
Yeah.
ends.
And you guys get closer.
Like the backing band for like a doo-wop.
Do we have questions? Start scanning. We'll start with Phil.
Great talk, guys. 2 questions. First, Craig, did you do the art on that Mitt Romney picture with the mohawk for the Onion?
Which Mitt
When was
that? Was that recently?
When he like was
The
going-
tattoos.
Yeah, he like the new image. He had the new image.
That's right. He
That was-
came out
Past
like really
campaign, right?
aggressive.
No, we had left the Onion. That was 2012, right?
No.
I mean,
I don't know when. That was that campaign lasted forever. Like we were there.
Yeah.
That would have been 2011 or so. Like,
So I don't know if it was a primary. Anyway, clearly he didn't.
clearly I didn't. I also have a bad memory, so I might have done it.
I was just curious.
But no, I don't think. I'm sorry. I
That was the
apologize.
longest way to know that I've ever heard.
It's how my own way of avoiding answering.
He's like, what, who, why? Yeah, good.
Where
And
are we?
second, for each of you, favorite Onion piece. Mine would have to be government response to Million Men March with Giant Cookie.
Did you say that because I'm up here? I love you, Phil. I'm just being serious, man. You guys have things?
I have lots of favorites. Yeah, here you go, buddy. One of my favorite headlines, and it's not very nice, but it's very funny and well done. Special Olympics T-ball stand pitches perfect game. Is incredible.
Yeah.
What else?
My own is it has nothing to do with anything really, but it's from the magazine parodies that they do, and it says, "Enough, is it enough?"
The magazine, by the way, if you never go look at the Onion magazine, is just a treasure trove of beautiful. There's somersaulting into traffic, the silent killer.
They're taking on New York Times magazine.
Is your
on parade
babysitter
right
on
now.
your drugs? There's so many good magazine headlines.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah, it's the one I always say. It's my favorite. All right, so this is not. It's not going to get a laugh right now, but I recommend everyone read it because it's one of the weirdest Onion stories ever, and it like breaks the archetype. And the story is: cyclist friend explains necessity of $35 socks. That's it. Go read it. It's one of the best Onion articles ever.
It is a one-of-a-kind story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
Also, yeah.
else?
Questions.
There's one in the back. There's one over there.
Over
I see
there.
a hand waving.
All kinds of people.
Okay, got it.
All kinds of questions.
That person is just choking. Sorry.
Hi. There's quicksand. Oh god.
Janosch.
Speak
So
up.
I love the Onion, and I forwarded a link to a friend one time, and then a couple days later learned that he did not know what the Onion was.
So you defriended him, right?
Eventually. There's a Tumblr blog that I love. It's people taking headlines literally. And when do you know when to pivot? As the word. Oh, it's on now. When do you know when to pivot and change your comedy, if you ever do? Do you, or how do you get that? How do you figure it out if you're trying to be funny and then it turns out that a lot of people aren't getting what you're doing?
So first of all,
what do you do?
So it's
I would just want to put, we should have said this at the top of the talk. We don't accept the use of the word pivot in a business or any kind of context, really, even in a physics context. It's not very helpful. We prefer the word twerk. So if you want to substitute a word in and twerk your business model if the thing isn't working out, that makes
And when it comes to twerking your comedy,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't.
no, I mean it in the stand-up sense, that's the whole point of getting up on a stage and failing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting immediate access to.
Well, so I think first of all, I think there is a what you're asking isn't necessarily connected to what you presented in terms of the website and people taking the Onion seriously. In my view, that's not a failure of the comedic outlet. It's a failure maybe of the world for being so absurd, or it's a failure in the mind of the person for being too quick to accept something that should be unbelievable, but maybe it adheres to their pre-existing worldview. So they're like, that's true. Like my best example of this is even more dramatic around Planned Parenthood. And there's this Onion headline, Planned Parenthood launches $8 billion abortionplex. And
It's about a big mall in Kansas,
like the Mall of
a big-
America, but just for abortion.
size is awesome.
How do you even spend $8 billion in a single facility unless you're like the Defense Department? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, but this member of Congress posted it to his
an
Facebook
Arkansas
page.
representative.
Yeah. And he's like, see what we're up against? And it's like, yeah, your brain. We're up against your fucking mind. And by the way, check out Fuck You Congress. We did that for you. So I don't, I wouldn't say that the reception of some of that material has any effect on the decision of what type of material to put out. But in terms of separately knowing when to adjust, it's not. I don't have a standard answer for that myself, and maybe you guys have some observations. But I would say it goes back to what the voice is and how it adapts. You certainly don't want to stay doing the same thing just because. Like, you want to grow with the new opportunities, with the new tools that are out there. The situation on the ground changes. There's new things happening in the world, and you want to, as an artist, certainly reflect on that and be creative around that. So there's changes that built into the process, but to abandon or overreact to some blip and say, we can't never do anything like that again, ever, that's conceding a bit too much. And I think it comes back to Michael's earlier point about sort of taking advice, but also own the expertise and know that voice and stay true to it as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think at the Onion, for instance, it had as a perspective, and it gets back to kind of establishing that perspective, establishing that point of view, committing to it, and feel like hopefully that's coming from a place of real passion. And if you have that, then you're not going to sort of
change out of that, so quickly. Otherwise, it's not really a passion. But you can make alterations, or you can sort of change like certain small elements of what you're doing, or maybe what you're talking about as a comedian, or what you're focusing on. But you always do have this certain perspective. There's always certain worldview.
And I'd say accept the reality that not everybody's going to be your customer or your fan. Yeah. Not everybody's going to love you. If everybody loves you, you're not doing anything. You're blank because they're projecting all them on you. And it's one of those, you stand for everything, you sit, whatever. Like there's a famous quote out there that you can put in to express what I just said.
Some like Yogi Berra line
so just
or
use
something.
what I said. Forget that other thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's clarifying, and the journey that I have discovered, especially on stage, is that you're trying to find your audience as much as they're trying to find their artist. And you meet in the middle over here and you go, oh, these are my people, these folks are mine. And that's okay. Like, that's part of the process too.
And I just have two quick things along those lines. The first one is like, in relation to that headline pitching thing, a lot of that was done to get the dumb ideas out first. Like, everyone's gonna come up with the same shitty idea in the beginning. You need to know that and then just get rid of it. Because that's not unique. So people might not engage with you because you don't have a unique voice, because it's obvious. And the second one, I think I already started to forget. Oh no, I remembered. It was, I started to forget. I was right. I started to forget it.
Finished forgetting.
Yeah.
I remembered the
Have
last
you finished
syllable.
forgetting yet?
No, I remembered it. It's know the metric that you care about, like, and just like stick to that. At the Onion, it's like, sharing and all that stuff. But if you're like, yeah, that's it.
Next question.
All right, we have a question back here.
In the shadows.
Hello, Mr. Thurston. Can you
Whoa,
give me
Mr.
at least
Thurston.
one of your favorite tips from How to Be Black?
Oh, right. Wow. That's a good way to not buy the book. I appreciate that. You're crafty. I respect the game. My favorite tip is to have at least one black parent. Yeah. That would be it. Thank you so much.
It's a good tip.
Yeah. Science.
I think we have one.
Hi guys, Michael Chasen. You may remember me
Yay!
from just a few minutes ago.
That
That was great talk.
Thank you. I feel like now's the appropriate time for me to pitch my book, How to Be a Jew.
I already got the domain name. You can work it out, baby.
I was actually curious, though. Obviously, a big fan of all of your work that you put up here on the screen, and was curious. Was curious, though, if there are kind of either other companies or applications in particular that you think incorporate your wit or incorporate kind of wit into what they're doing. And in particular, I might use this as a plug, because I think there's an application that I recently have seen, Snapdash, that kind of incorporates that. And I know you guys are probably a little bit familiar with it. Would love to hear your comment on that, as well as other applications you think kind of just incorporate this fun type of comedy into what they're doing.
Absolutely, yes, yes, yes. I mean, one of the exciting things about, I say, the past 7-ish years, and 5 of those being at the Onion where we all met, is realizing that humor should be everywhere, can be everywhere, creatively. Part of my discovery at the Onion was new ways to be funny. I was always, it can be funny on Twitter, it can be funny on stage, it can be funny in a book, it can be funny on a blog. But can you go even deeper? Can you get comedy in the code itself? Can you unlock humor in other people? Can you have humor in the interactions in a non-funny app, just to show that there's a human being behind it, that there's humanity in all this tech? We have all these algorithms defining the world around us. It's nice to know that there's people on the other side of that. And humor is one of the most humanizing forces out there in the world. So it's why Comedy Hack Day is so beautiful for us to watch as people create new versions of this. So Snapdash, which Michael referenced, there's a friend of a friend introduced me to it. It's a photo sharing app. But it was inspired by a guy who was an improviser. And instead of just selfies and observatory kind of comments around the world, you have a prompt. You're prompted to exhibit some sort of behavior. They'll say, you just drank a half a bottle of sour milk. You are being eaten by fire ants. You found out that some embarrassing thing about your friend. So that conjures a facial response. That conjures some kind of caricature motion, and it inspires some real play and fun beyond like duck face, you know? So that's one example. I think MailChimp, on the complete other end of the spectrum,
absolutely.
not trying. They're an email service provider. It is their job to get out of the way of your message. And it's a pretty boring utility at that level, but they've got voice, they've got personality, they have a chimp. And if you've not used it, even if you use a competitor, like just go play around on their website. The interactions, it's really nice. It takes a lot of the drudgery out of composing an email campaign and doing A/B testing, because they put a lot of flavor into those interactions.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're, I would say, probably the most fun, like, big tech company. And like, my friends run this thing, or our friends.
Way to claim our friends, Greg.
Sorry. Well, I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, like, I'm kind of better friends with
Oh,
them.
that's good. I'm
So
just
our
beginning to
friends,
forget them. Yeah.
Not Brian's friends. This group called Fictive Kin. They're like a design agency. They make amazing stuff. They also do their own products. They recently launched a Christmas list. And they're super fun guys, and so it's like this whole Christmas guide, and it's based on like Amazon referral links, and like, you know, they're cool designers, so people want to click on the stuff, whatever. And other people have done that. That's fine, whatever. However, what they did with their site is they'll have the image of the thing, the little good you're gonna buy from them, and then this little toggle below. So it's like a Christmas box, and then a tree, and then it's default to the Christmas, like the little present box. And then if you click on the tree, it reloads the graphic, shrinks it down, and puts it below this little tiny tree with a giant TrioVision trademark right on top of the page. And it's totally pointless, but kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we're working on a map, honestly, of things like this, where there's different categories. There are people who kind of use humor in messaging to disarm and humanize. And you see this a lot of error pages. You see a lot of support messaging where you're trying to evoke empathy because you've messed up, or a machine has messed up. You want to remind people before the rage button goes all the way, hey, I'm a human being on the other side of this, let's calm down. You got parody and satire, you know, Tinder for dogs and something weird like that. And then you have sort of the interaction level. Google Voice does a great job of this. As you're typing a text message, as you wrap into the second message, it shows you the iteration you're in message 2, declining character count. You wrap into the third message, and it just trips a little wire. It says, really? With a question mark. And it's the most subtle thing. There's a weather app in New York called Poncho. It's the first weather app I've ever seen that has personality. They have comedians helping write the weather. And you get a text message twice a day that tells you how windy or wet or cold or hot it's going to be. But there's also a lot of fun baked into it. Massive world out there, and we exist in part to celebrate it and to add to it.
Over here.
That guy has a hand.
A lot of these people have hands.
No, it's great. I haven't seen all of them. I can't prove.
100%
I can only
two-handed.
prove what I've seen.
What is the mission statement for Cultivated Wit, and how are you going to monetize what you're doing?
Wow. Thanks, Buzzkill.
Who's that guy? We should have ended.
We just gave a whole
Take his
thing.
hand.
There are
Yeah,
many.
seriously.
There are many versions of answers to that question, to the first part. But you know, on our site, cultivatedwit.com, which you might remember from screens right in front of you right now, it's a collision of comedy and technology, bringing good ideas to earth. And those ideas may exist in the form of a web series that we write, produce, and help edit. They may exist in the form of helping a client with their message and using real human wit and interaction and smart digital tools to get that done. It may exist in the form of tools that we create to help other creative people do their job better, because we know a chunk about how to create based on our own experience. Not everything, but we have some expertise that we're happy to claim. So that's the mission. In terms of the money, we make money on production deals to create media. We make money on client services and essentially an agency model. We make money on sponsorships of our Comedy Hack Day event. We've had relationships with Tumblr, with Google, with Squarespace, and the like, and smaller companies with great APIs they want people to play with. And we'll make money in the future.
Murder for hire.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't forget, that's really profitable.
The local motion guy, we're going to have like a whisper mode on our drones that we'll be making locally and monetize that way. Absolutely. And that's the start. I think, you know, if we're successful, with success comes more expansion and opportunity. We have a roadmap for stuff like that, but that's how we are making money, I would say, yeah.
All right, I think I saw another question.
Oh, this
All the way
over here, second row,
Shadowy
third row maybe.
questions. Oh, the guy with the hand.
Oh yeah, the hand.
Let's not go showing off now.
So there's been a big push for learning to code. I mean, even President Obama said, hey, you know, everybody should go out and code.
That guy says a lot of things.
Yeah.
He does.
He's full of stuff like that.
That's a good thing, but I also hear a lot about people should go and learn to improv. I've heard that probably 4 or 5 times over the
Maybe
last
even
year.
earlier today.
Even before today, true. And you guys obviously support that, but that's not something that's very accessible. It's a lot easier to go out and learn how to code. There's tons of sites that do that. What would you do to spread going out and doing improv for somebody who's going to have social anxiety like most geeks do?
So I'm pretty sure I disagree with you in terms of the challenge associated with it, but maybe we have different sense of what the barriers are. In terms of the challenge of going out and learning improv, most cities have an improv company. They have pretty price accessible classes. Companies can do it. If you were in a large organization, I'm sure Zappos people, they would just write you a check because I think I don't know how they make money. I think they just spend a lot of money. But we're happy, right? We're all very happy. So you could do that. You could do that. And I love Zappos, guys. I am required to say I love Zappos, guys.
We all are very happy.
Anyway, there's a lot of avenues into improv, and it's not cost prohibitive. It may social anxiety-wise, certainly. On the coding side, you have a hint to your own answer through what you offer there in terms of online learning. There is
to the social anxiety side. I mean, I hate to be so blunt, but it boils down to like just getting over it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I say this as someone who's gone more comedy side, and I have never taken a class to code, and I have certain anxieties over going to do that. And these two would very quickly say to me, like, get over your fucking self and go learn to do this. Like, learn this skill.
Said that.
Yeah, it's very direct. They had a terrible review just like a week ago. So, no, but like I think it is hard. Obviously, like anxieties are difficult things, and we all have them in whatever respect. But you know, like for me, it's very. I get like it can make me feel anxious to think about like this whole new language, and you know that's not as much of like my background, and I don't think I'll be so comfortable in there, and I'm worried that I'll embarrass myself and look really stupid. But that is the whole like point, and that's why we're encouraging more people to code, even if it's maybe not something you're pre-programmed to do. Sorry.
see what you did
yeah,
there
no, I didn't do
this
that.
guy.
I didn't. Don't see what I did
I
there.
saw it,
Please
and you
don't
did
see
it.
what I
How
did
could I
there.
not see what you did
No.
there when you were right there doing it?
But you know, I think it's about understanding that the other people in that space are the same way, and that is the point.
Yeah.
The point is to make yourself uncomfortable, to embarrass yourself, and to maybe screw up. You know, so.
And if anything, I will, as someone who's anchored much more in stand-up than in improv, I never was in a real company, like doing multiple shows. I did that great summer, which opened my eyes a bit. It is the most love-filled, forgiving, supportive room that person or any person might be in their entire lives. The full range of emotion is explored. People are there for each other. Hugging is a part of it. And so it's telling someone to go do a stand-up comedy set at a nightclub, terrifying. Yeah, telling someone to go
Definitely don't do that. It'll become an alcoholic.
Telling someone to go and be supported by strangers who will say yes to their ideas just because, who will collectively agree that we're holding a red ball right now. Yes, we are. Like, they will hallucinate with you. Like, that is powerful support.
And I mean, just take a friend that you can make laugh, and so like you
kidnap them, like grab a friend.
Yeah, I mean, so find someone who has a friend and then take them. No, but I mean, like you're probably a lot better at like riffing and joking around than you give yourself credit for. You just have to be in the right environment. And if what you were leading towards was like Codecademy for improv, I think it'd be really tough. But I'm interested in riffing online.
Or use Snapdash.
Or use Snapdash or whatever.
Tell that guy he owes us money.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have time for maybe one more question.
5 more questions, guys. Let's go.
One 5-part question.
From
Right over
Barack
here.
Obama.
I love the concept of trying to make something that's to most people miserable, turn it into something fun. Could you give us an example of how you might do that with the healthcare exchanges and the sign-up process?
There's no hope there. I'm so sorry. No.
A bunch of really fun buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You thought you had healthcare,
Buttons, yeah.
psych. The rates would be lower if your congressman weren't a dick. Sorry.
I mean, that's an expensive question.
Back to how we make money. I like it. I like it.
I don't think you can necessarily like turn healthcare.gov into like a game. That's like, how many family members do you have? Like in a fun way.
Actually,
that might actually work.
Yeah,
If you just, but I mean that would be like one place where maybe our brainstorming mind would start with just like, well, what if you didn't mention healthcare, and how could you get to all these different questions and get all this information from someone not explicitly for this sort of like boring like or anxiety riddled topic?
Yeah.
Tracking their cell phone.
Yeah, tracking this. Yeah, exactly.
There's so much. I think there's a ton of opportunity with it, and there's so many pieces that are problematic. Like it's problematic that you have essentially half of the members of the elected government committed to ensuring failure of a government program before it even launches. Like that's kind of unprecedented, and I would say bad. Like I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's bad. So that's one thing. Then you also have this like massive technological failure on the part of the operators to not plan because the way governments do provisioning of tech stuff, and so there's a mea culpa opportunity with this. Back to the error pages, and showing that there's people here. Yeah. There's an opportunity for competency on all sides to just have nothing to do with comedy, just be better. And there's an opportunity, I think, for those, you see the hints of it in some of these studies that say, everybody hates Obamacare, people love the Affordable Care Act. You're like, it's the same damn thing. And so to the idea of, there's such emotion and charge around the label and around this president. And I obviously think it's terrible, but it doesn't matter what I think. It's a fact. It is obscuring the value of that might be in this process. So, you launched some new thing called freepuppies.net, and at the end of it, you got healthcare from Obama. Like, holy shit, that was amazing. Like,
we fixed it.
Fixed it. Done.
That'll be $30,000 a minute. Okay.
Should have charged more. Yeah. And just one more thing, like, kind of towards what we were getting at before about like the interactions online. Just writing in like a human tone and making the interactions nice and simple. Not filling a page with like 50 form fields or whatever.
Except if you're Cultivated Wit and that form is section 4.
Yeah, but that has jQuery and they slide around and it's awesome. Yeah, just making it like easy and fun to use. Like there's often like a giant disconnect between like the things you need to use and the things you use for fun. And we're kind of like in between. And a lot of things can do that.
Everyone, please give me a big round of applause.
I love the awkwardness of the end.
It's always me awkwardly ending it.
Jesus.
All right. Great job, guys.
Thank you.